Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm here with my main man, Tyler. And Tyler, we got to talk about something today that I think is probably the hottest topic that people don't talk about. That's longevity in golf. We hear this all the time. After we do a lot of digging, I think like initially, like when we talk to guys, it's I want distance or fix my back pain or But I think underlying all that is this fear of like, am I going to be able to continue playing this game? And I know you talk about this with a ton of golfers, like hundreds of golfers every month.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, like, what are you hearing? Like, what is the beat on the street, man?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I got to say, I want these old guys to keep playing because that means I can keep playing against them and keep taking their money. It's great supplemental income for me, in the summer. So stay on the golf course, guys. We want to keep you out there. I would say the number one thing that I hear from golfers is that, hey, I don't want to have to give up the game, right? Because my body hurts, right? And that's where a lot of guys are right now when I talk to them, especially guys who are in that 50 to 60 range. They have pain they've never had before. Their games are going the wrong way, right? I can't tell you how many times I hear, 5 years ago I was a 3 handicap and now I'm a 9 or a 10 and it's the worst it's ever been. And so I definitely think there's a trend of these guys. They're looking for answers, right? They're not sure what to do about this. And then luckily for them, they hear, you on PGA Tour radio, or they find us through Google or YouTube, and we're able to have a really great conversation about really the reasons why they're having these issues, right? Where their rotational mobility is at and what ways that we can help them, right? Because at the end of the day, we have a goal. We want to help golfers play well right here and now, but we also want to help golfers play well for a long time, right? And a guy who's 50 years old, that is young in the game of golf still, right? I mean, I play with guys every single week who are in their late 70s, early 80s, are still out there playing 5-6 days a week. So how do we help guys do that and get there? And those are the discussions that we have every single day. And it's pretty eye-opening to these guys, I would say, Chris, who go through that mobility assessment, right? I can't tell you how many times I also hear, man, my hips stink, or man, my shoulder does not move. And so being able to talk with them about, hey, what's the next step, right? And how do we help them? I think is really the best part about my job, is getting me to be able to help people. For sure. And I think, longevity, I think you hit it on the head. Nobody talks about that, right? Nobody ever says, hey, how do we help you play for a long time? Everyone says, hey, I want to help you hit it further right now. Or, hey, I want to help you, make more putts. And it's like, well, none of that matters if you're stuck on the couch looking at the sunshine outside because your back hurts too bad, right?
Exactly. Well, what are like I guess, what are the most common things that you're seeing, like talking with guys, on the phone or, on a Zoom, and what are guys dealing with right now?
Yeah, I would say the number one, first and foremost, it's back pain, right? That low back pain. And unfortunately, I can say to them, hey, man, I'm dealing with the same thing myself, right? I have some low back pain that goes on when I play golf, and they always laugh at me because I'm like, hey, I'm 32, so I'm way ahead of you in this back pain game. I got you there. But that's definitely number one that I hear guys talk about is and especially what we hear is after the round, right? It's not so much a pain that they have while they're playing. It may get a little tight towards the last few holes, but it's that drive home, right? A guy sits in the car and he drives home 30 minutes, and then, his wife basically has to help him shuffle into the house because that low back has tightened up so much. And then we get into the discussion quite a bit of, okay, well, hey, how long has that been going on? And you would be shocked, Chris, how many guys say, oh yeah, 10, 15 years is just something I've been dealing with. And it's like, holy cow, man, like how, if I've had back pain for 10, 15 years, I'm going to scratch and claw and figure out every route I can go to get that fixed. And a lot of
years,
how
about days?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of these guys they've gone to chiropractors and they've gone through, physical therapy. A lot of guys I've talked to have had, they've even had surgical intervention, right? They've had fusions and discectomies and things like that. And then we go through the mobility assessment, Chris, and you would be, it's amazing how often, I would say 99% of the time when a guy says to me, Tyler, I'm here because my back hurts, I say, all right, well, Chris, let me check out your hips, right? Let's go through the hip assessment in terms of mobility. And we're looking at 10 or 15 degrees of rotation. And so
what should they have? Like what are they shooting for?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is 45, right? If we can get somebody to 45 degrees
Oh,
of
not even in the same
rotation,
zip code.
yeah. I do when I do the call with these guys and I have to walk them through the testing if they haven't done it ahead of time. I always use my right leg because for me that's probably closer to like 35 degrees of rotation. My left leg's about 15, so I don't let them
That's
see
good.
the.
There's no ego,
see the
no
left.
ego there
Right.
whatsoever.
That's right. That's right. So being at 10 or 15 degrees and the goal being to get to 45, I mean that's going to put so much pressure on other parts of the body. And I use an analogy that I heard from you once that the back, man, that's the friendly neighbor in the golf swing, right? And when we're 20 and 30 and 40 and our hips can't rotate, the back is there. It just says, hey man, I'll take over some of that. So I'll help you rotate. I'll help you turn, like no problem. But when we get 50 and 60, that friendly neighbor turns into the angry neighbor and he says, hey guys, I'm enough of this, right? I can't help you anymore. I'm done doing this. And that's where we get that low back barking. And so I think opening guys' eyes to that is the most important thing, right? The causation of that back pain, and then being able to show them, hey, it's not rocket science to get you fixed here, right? We're not talking. We don't need surgery, right? We're not talking about spending 3, 4, 5 hours in the gym. It's 90 minutes a week, and it's working on the right things. And if we can get you doing that, then we can help you, right? And at the end of the day, for us and what we do, that's our end goal, right? If we can help golfer after golfer after golfer continue to play golf and do it pain-free, that's the best thing in the world because you love to play golf. I love to play golf. We know how much it stinks when you're hurt and you can't do that, right? And so being able to let guys continue to have that joy that golf brings them that's why we do this job, and that's why we're here to help people and talking about it here today.
So I'm curious, Tyler. So you get these guys to they come on, they're like, yeah, my back hurts or whatever, whatever they're struggling with. I want to hit it further. I've lost 20 yards.
Yeah.
Johnny, I used to hit it 20 yards past him. Now he hits it past me and he won't stop talking crap, right? Whatever it may be. You go through the assessment with them and you, let's say that, to your point, like they move 5 degrees and they should be going 45, like nowhere near.
Sure.
Like how is that received? Like, do you get pushback? Like, do you like what's that conversation like at that point when you kind of are like, oh, okay, yep, that's terrible. This is an easy thing from my end because I've seen this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I mean, shoot, we may be at thousands for you. I know I've seen it about 10,000 times.
Yeah.
But what is what's that conversation? Where does that go from there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I try to do for guys that I talk to is really connect that to their golf swing, right? Because if a guy tells me I've got back pain and then we do that mobility test and like, let's say they're a right-handed golfer and their lead hip only rotates 10 degrees. Well, then I say, hey, do you ever deal with these issues yet? Do you ever stand up, through impact? Do you ever feel like your hands are taking over at impact and you're having to flip the golf club and shutting that club face and get the ball going left? Does that front foot, do you ever feel like that thing's just spinning out on you, right? Is that something that
are they just going like check, 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 check?
Yeah, exactly. They say, hey, you've never seen me swing a golf club. How did you know that? And I say, well, these are what compensations for lack of, internal rotation of your lead hip looks like, right? And so I think when you can connect the, what's going on with the body, right, biomechanically with what's going on in their swing, because a lot of those guys have never thought, hey, the reason that I'm hitting the ball left all the time and starting left of target and hitting these hooks is because I can't get through my lead side. That just doesn't compute because there's just not, I guess, the understanding of how mobility impacts the golf swing, right? It's not something that's openly really talked about. And I think even when a lot of these guys are working with their instructors are trying to get them in certain positions and they're getting frustrated because they're like, man, I just can't do that. And let's
like the dirty little secret of golf, right? That we don't talk about physical limitations because we're just gonna come up with a swing fix. We're gonna work around it. And there's so many golf instructors, like more and more that I'm seeing that are actually like kind of coming around to this, where they're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Like I just had no idea like what to do. And I think there's I'm a big advocate of talking. I think in the being a physical therapist and a strength coach, coming from that world, and the lack of education specific to sport and the lack of education specific to tissue work and helping guys get and any person get over pain, right, and how quick it can be. And it's not just go do 3 sets of 10 with a TheraBand, right? That's like your standard physical therapy. I call it, it's your crap therapy. But like the I think in the golf world, when you understand the instruction that PGA professionals, LPGA professionals, a lot of their curriculum is not instructional based.
Yep.
And further, there's no discussion of physical ability or capability
Yeah.
or any of that. And so I think what's encouraging for me is to see the number of PGA, LPGA instructors who are actually starting to come around and understand this on their own. They're kind of doing their own con ed, right? Which I think is amazing. But there's still such a large number of professionals that are teaching who don't even like look at this. And so I think as a golfer, it's so important. You know, if you're an instructor listening, like kudos to you, like you're probably already one of the top 10%. But you know, as a golfer, like I think there's so much to be had of like you wouldn't the analogy of like you just don't go buy a car just randomly. Like you're going to do some research on it. Like, you shouldn't just go take a lesson randomly. Like the number of instructors who were telling, you know, I've seen a student like what they're telling them fundamentally is 100% correct.
Yeah.
But then I'm watching that guy try to swing and his lead foot starts like, you know, pointing at the ball and ends with his like heel pointing at the ball. Like that dude's hip ain't moving. I don't like, and they're just sitting there trying to get him to clear to their lead side. Like, I'm sorry, but homeboy, that ain't happening. Like unless
I don't know why you got to talk about my golf swing like that. It's pretty rude of you to say.
I was trying to be very coy about it. But you know, then after that lesson, I can't tell you how many, you know, just golfers I've had, and they come to me because they're hurting and they're like mad at the golf pro, like it was the golf pro's fault.
Yeah.
And it's a product of them not knowing, right? And so I think, you know, the goal of, you know, for me, and it sounds like what you're hearing on these conversations is education. And educating golfers and professionals alike of what's actually going on.
100%. I think in the golf world, we kind of do things backwards, right? When we start playing golf, the first thing people do, it's never come to see us, right? We're always a last resort. We're kind of the last thing people find. And if people would start with us and say, hey, you know what, I want to learn how to move my body correctly in the golf swing, right? I want to make sure that the connection between my body and my swing is correct. And then would go get a lesson and then would go get fitted for clubs and make us part of the beginning of that journey instead of the end. There would be so many less golfers with pain, without pain and without these issues that we're talking about. But it's just not taught that way, and people don't learn those things.
And so many more golf professionals who still have their hair because they're not like pulling it out, trying to get Mr. Johnson to get to his lead side when in reality Mr. Johnson can't.
Yeah, correct. And I would tell you, Chris, the crazy thing is, you know, when I'm reaching out to folks who are interested in what we do, maybe they didn't schedule a call with us right away, right? They're still thinking about it. I mean, I can tell how many guys I talk to who respond to me and say, hey, Tyler, thanks so much, but hey, I've got too many issues, right? I'm too far gone. I don't think you can help me. And, you know, to me, that's the saddest message I can get, because for a guy to have, you know, played golf his whole life and now feel like, hey, there's no more resort for him. There's nothing else anybody can do for him. That really sucks, man. And so I think, you know, for us, it's almost and you talked about it before, kind of a moral obligation to help people, right? Because that's what we want to do. Like when we talk to these people who have pain and they have these issues with their swing, and you know, right now, you know, I'm a scratch golfer, right? That's what my handicap says I have. I probably play like a 6 or 7, but that's what my handicap says I is. If 10 years from now, if I'm like a 12 or 13 handicap, like I'm not going to enjoy the game, right? And I can see and hear that in these guys' voices that I'm talking to, and their stories about where their game's gone. And so being able to educate, I think what you said before, that is the number one thing. Even if somebody doesn't sign up for a program, P4S Golf, the ability to talk with those people and educate them on, say, hey, these are the things you need to work on. Whether you want to do that with us or somebody else or kind of on your own, I want you to understand the importance of working on your hips and working on your shoulder mobility in these 4 rotational centers, because the last thing I want you to do is, you know, not be able to play golf anymore, because that's not good for us. That's not good for anyone. And so I think that kind of comes through in those calls is how important these things are. And I also would say, how many of these people that I talk to have never done any sort of assessment physically like this, right?
That, to me, that's always the big gap for me, right? I'd hear those guys, you know, I've tried. Excellent. You know, it's just I got so much going on, I can't do it. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's pause for a second. Like, let's go through. Like, what's everything you've tried to do? Like, I understand where you're trying to get to. You're trying to gain some yardage back. You're trying to do it without being in pain. Like, take me through. Like, what have you done to try to address the issue, right? And it's like, oh well, I went to a surgeon. He wouldn't operate on me, or maybe they did. Unfortunately, that happens too.
Yeah.
Right? or I took a lesson from this guy, that guy, from this girl, that girl. Like I took 10 lessons from different people. I've gotten new clubs 3 times. They're listing like this just huge laundry list.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and so finally I get to the end, I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. You've tried all the things. I'm sorry you've gone through this. Hey, have you ever thought about assessing your body, like, so that if you could actually move to do what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
Like, did any of the professionals do that? Any of the physio? I've seen 5 physical therapists, and I got no better. But what'd you do with them? Well, they gave me TheraBands, and they put heat on my shoulder, and it's like, okay, yeah, because none of that works. I got ultrasound. That doesn't work either. So they're getting like all these different and it's like, and so perceptually to the golfer, they've tried everything.
Yeah.
But in reality, and unfortunately, this is, again, I go back to there's a issue this is a different box to get onto the education in my professions, right? There's some gaps in the instructional and understanding the physical side of things on the golf professional side of things. And unfortunately, those two things kind of, a lot of golfers explore all of those peripheries and they don't actually get to the core 1 or 2 things that matter. And to your point, I think like a lot of times we're the last stop. It's like, I always found the challenge is like, oh, hey, I'm like, I know you've done everything. Would you mind it? We just look at like 3 things right now in the next 2 minutes. Right. And then inevitably, they say, all right, move your hip this way. And they look at you like you got 4 heads. They're like,
yeah.
What are you, an alien? Like, that's not supposed to move that way. Well, actually it is. Yeah. So
yeah. No, I think the going through those mobility tests are the most eye-opening things that these golfers can do. Right. And I think I'm 32 years old, right? I am not an old guy. I should have a lot of golf ahead of me. And I think when I started here at P4S Golf, it's like, man, I went through that assessment and I went through the golf performance evaluation, in-house. And it was shocking to me how bad my body was at rotating, right? And I'm a pretty good golfer. I can hit the ball a long way. Like, I create good speed. And it's like, man, when we talk about that ticking time bomb, I am ticking and ticking and ticking. And
well, I think of as we get older, how much like you have a lot of elasticity and like ability to withstand things. So I have 3 kids, right? So I always think in my head of like, I have like a baby, and I'm not proud of this, but occasionally, a baby would roll off a bed, right? It happens. You got 3 kids, one of them's going to go, sure. Right? Well, they're so bouncy, they hit the ground, and they're fine. You freak out as a parent, especially if it's your first kid, right? And you're like, by the 3rd one, you're like, they'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
But can you imagine, or I'll look at my oldest is 10 now, and I'll watch him jump off of a box that's as tall as he is or a little taller. Can you imagine a 65-year-old just falling flush on hardwood from 3 feet up? That's not going to end well.
No.
On their back, right? Not putting their hands out, right? Or can you even imagine you or me, we're in our 30s, right? Jumping off of something almost 6 feet, 7 feet tall, and landing it. The thought of a knee exploding is very real on that.
Oh,
right?
100%.
So just to think of when you think of those analogies of how the human body becomes less and less elastic and can take less and less and less.
Yeah.
Think of what, you at 32 versus, my 10-year-old, versus someone at 72. You're able to overcome a lot of restrictions a lot easier. And I think, unfortunately, when we look at our data, at 41, there is some massive Grand Canyon cliff that people fall off of. Right. And I think as you get in your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, it just you become less and less able to compensate without paying for it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely, we'll put the link to the assessment, in the show notes there. So if somebody's out there listening, you've never assessed your overall mobility, and especially these 4 rotational centers that we talk about, the neck, thoracic spine, shoulders, and the hips, go ahead and do that. Do yourself a favor. Check out where you're at. I think you'll probably be shocked in most cases in terms of what your mobility looks like. And then let us try and help you, right? Let us schedule a call with me or Jason or some of the other guys here, at P4S, and let's figure out the best way that we can help you. Because what we talked about this whole time is that's our end goal, right? We want as many people playing golf as well as possible, as long as possible. And if this show helps us, reach 2 or 3 more people to do that, and then it's been a big success for us, because that's what we love to do. and that's why we're here. So I don't want to keep getting those text messages of people saying, "Hey, I can't be helped. I've done everything that I can think of. Like, I thanks so much, but no thanks because nobody's been able to help me before." I think educating people, looking at it through a different lens, and looking through it at it, hey. Again, it's not rocket science. It's not a death sentence to have back pain or knee pain or shoulder pain at 50 or 60 years old. It just means you're getting older. You're probably not rotating, and you need a little bit of help. And that's really what we're here to do, to talk about and help people through.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I think I had one golfer he played at the University of Richmond, and then he went on to play professionally. And his mother came in one time, and she was like, she had back pain for years. Right? So she's not even a golfer. Right? My point is the whole discussion here is how can you play the game of golf for as long as possible, right? Live a long, healthy life and play some golf while you're doing it. She came in. She was in probably early 60s. She's been to like 5 or 6 PTs over the last 5 years. She's been in pain literally for 5 years. And she's like, yeah, no one's ever fixed me. No one's ever been able to figure it out. She came in and literally went through and like, in 10 minutes, we're like, oh yeah, so you can't move here. So let's open that up. And then she like stood up and she like looked at me. Yeah, if you listen to this in audio, you can't see my face, but like, it was like, just like face drop, like total shock. She stood up and she was like, where to go? Like, where did it go? And I was like, you start going through, you're like, well, what did they know? Nobody ever put their hands on her. They just gave her exercises, right? And you get into a deeper issue of how the system's run and everything. But it was basically like, it was such a simple fix that just people didn't take the time to figure it out or weren't able to figure it out. And it crushes me, like same as you. You hear those guys, I'm too far gone. Like literally 10,000 plus golfers. I've never met one that we haven't been able to at least point in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I think the key to playing this game for as long as possible, and we'll dive into all the specifics in other episodes of strength and power numbers and all those sorts of things. But I think just to wrap, like the key to keep yourself from exploding, or if you've already exploded, to put yourself back together, right, is really, it's a really simple formula of, can you rotate in the right areas? Do you have the right mobility? Is your tissue healthy? And then are you strong enough to support what you're trying to do? It's really a very simple formula. And I think, hopefully, if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, the light bulb's going off of, hey, this kind of sounds like me a little bit, right? Like hopefully it's kind of resonating, and it at least pushes you over the edge to at least say, hey, I got 5 minutes. I'll just see how these areas kind of move. And if they don't move, that should be the most exciting moment of your life. Of like, maybe not of your life, probably birth of children and marriage, and maybe holes in ones might be more exciting, but it should be a very exciting moment where you're like, oh my God, there's something I can do to make this better. And I think that's the key to longevity, is continually reassessing and figuring out what exactly can you do to play this game for as long as possible at as high a level as possible.
Well, it's very nice you get help with that lady with her back pain. I noticed you never did that for me when we've been playing for a couple dollars here and there.
I just knew that I needed a co-host who could really resonate with everyone that we're talking to.
That's funny. That's interesting. I'll definitely keep that in mind and remember that. But you hit everything on the head there, man. I think we just want to help golfers play a long time, and I think you would agree. Golf's the greatest game in the world, right? There's a reason that we do it for part of our jobs, right? There's a reason that we're in the golf industry, because we love it and we want to share it with as many people as we can. We want to help people play well. So that's our end goal. And if we can, continue to do that and keep educating people, I think we're going to be able to reach more and more golfers and help them the right way, and get them playing, pain-free for a long time.
And make sure we're hitting those bombs.
That's right. Bombs away.
Bombs away, guys.